Hi, my name is Mike McCalco. At the age of 17, the drums found me. It was a simple attraction, instant attraction. I wanted to play, smash, bash on my cheap rental set all the time. It was great. At this point, I then decided maybe I should get a better drum set and sign up for some lessons. I went through a few different teachers before finding one who was dedicated to teaching me all the essential grooves and rudiments. This was great. What more could I ask for? I could go home each night, practice 3 to 6 hours a day, have a great time sitting down behind the drums. Also, with my love for heavy metal music, I was able to jam along with my favorite bands. This was fabulous. I had so much fun playing the drums. One problem I was faced with all this practicing, I was starting to develop some serious arm pain. This was due to the fact that I did not have proper technique. It posed a slight problem because the teacher that I had at the time was a great drummer who could play all these really cool grooves and all these great fills, but he lacked speed, power, and control. So at this time, I decided to seek out some of the world's best technique teachers to help me begin my journey sounding like my favorite drummers. When I moved to Vancouver in 1994, I was informed of a great technique teacher named John Fisher. John began fixing all my problems and the pain was finally going away. At this time, I was noticing that I was sounding cleaner, more precise, gaining speed, more power and control around the drum set. In 1995, I met Mr. Dom Famulero, who I study with to this day. Dom was the polish to my new technique. He refined and cleaned up everything that I had been working on with previous teachers. Dom had then introduced me to his great friend and teacher, Jim Chapin. Jim Chapin was also Sanford Moeller's best student. Hearing about Jim Chapin really sparked my curiosity, and I had the chance to meet Mr. Chapin when he was 80 years young. We sat down in a room with a practice pad and a pair of drumsticks. It was one of the greatest technique lessons I've ever had, and I still continue to study with Mr. Chapin whenever I have the chance. In this DVD, I would like to share with you all of the techniques that I have learned and developed and still practice to this day, including the Moeller method, the motions, finger control, all the grips, and much more. My goal is to get each and every one of you playing to your fullest potential, whether you play jazz, heavy metal, country, funk, Latin, whatever it may be. Let's dig into this DVD, and remember, let's always have fun. Okay, now before we can get into the Moeller technique, we have to talk about the most important element of playing the drums. Now believe it or not, it's actually how to hold the drumstick. I'm amazed at how many players, even professionals, have never got this simple concept correct. Now a perfect example was myself. I played drums for almost 10 years not knowing how to hold the sticks properly. This posed a huge problem. I had no rebound, no speed, and no control. Once I actually learned how to hold this piece of wood in my hands, I was amazed at how I started sounding better and moving around the drum set with more motion and fluidity. So let's start from scratch. Okay, we'll begin with having no drumsticks in our hand. The first thing I'd like you to do is take your right hand and make a gun with it, just like this, and now from your wrist, point it to the left, okay? And left-handed players, you do the opposite. Now at this point, I would like you to take your gun and lay it down just above the snare drum rim, just like that. Now at this point, we're going to take the barrel of the gun and bend it slightly at the first joint. Not too much, you don't want to do this. You just want to bend it just slightly enough to create a small little pocket between the tip of your finger and the second portion of your finger. Now, what we're going to do at this point is you're going to take your drumstick and you're going to rest the back of the stick in the pocket you created and the tip of the stick on the snare drum. Now what we have to do is we have to find the balance point of our drumstick. Now what that is it's the area of the stick that creates the most natural rebound when you let the stick naturally fall. Let me demonstrate. If I'm holding the stick way too far back and I lift the tip, I let it fall, it just dies. I get nothing out of the stick. Now if I have my index finger too far forward and I drop the stick, it's a very weak, unconvincing rebound. If I'm way too far forward, the stick's just going to fall out of the back of my hand. So what you've got to do is you have to find the sweet spot or the balance point of the stick. Now I use the Vic Firth Extreme 5A sticks, and I find that my balance point is in between the H and the Vic Firth flag there. And when I put my finger on that spot, listen to that. The stick wants to naturally rebound. Whether you push on the back of the stick or raise the front of the stick, there it is. So what you can do next is you can start dribbling the stick like a basketball. Not only have you found the balance point, you're going to impress all your friends. At this point, you've found the balance point. If you haven't found it, keep checking. All right, now at this point, I'd like you to try putting your thumb on top of the drumstick like this. We want to try to get as much of the fleshy part of your thumb right on top of the stick as possible. Not the tip of your thumb, not the curve of your thumb, not the sides of your thumb. You really want to build a nice stable fulcrum point between your thumb and your index finger. Notice that the stick is still in the first joint. It hasn't slid over to the second one. Still in the first joint, and the fleshiest part of my thumb is on top of the stick. This is called the fulcrum point. Your back fingers are not touching the stick yet. That's okay, we're going to get to that. What I want you to do at this point is I want you to take your hand, turn it over so your palm is now facing the ground, just like that. Fingers still aren't touching the stick. Now, if I raise my hand up from this point, I want the back of the stick to come in contact with the soft, fleshy part of my hand. Okay? Don't do this. Even if you were taught to do this way, try option B. Okay? You might stick with option B in the long run. I know I did. So at this point, once the stick is in contact with the soft part of your hand there, I want you to take your fingers and gently wrap them around the stick. But not really wrapped, I just find that my fingertips are coming in contact with the drumstick. It's not this, it's this. Notice, no tension, always relaxed. So now at this point, I'm going to bring my hand back down to the snare drum, show you how this looks on the drum itself. Now that we've learned how to hold the stick in one hand, all you got to do is grab your other drumstick and match them up. Simply just look at your hands, make sure that everything looks exactly the same. You don't have to go through the whole process that we did earlier. You can if you want, but just simply look to make sure that the stick is exactly the same in your left hand as it in your right hand. This is called matched grip. Now for you traditional players out there, or for those drummers who are interested in tapping into this technique, no pun intended, we can also call this grip the conventional grip, the military grip, or the jazz grip. Call it what you want, it's all the same idea. Now this was a grip that I was accidentally introduced to. I remember going to one of my first great teachers and saying, "Can you teach me some brush technique on the snare drum?" He grabbed his brushes, started playing in a traditional grip form. Looking over and seeing what he was doing, monkey see, monkey do, I grabbed my brushes, started playing the same way. That's how this all started. Now on that note, I had never learned how to play the traditional grip properly. I enjoyed it, I liked the way it looked, a lot of my favorite drummers were using it, so I decided to find a teacher who could help me refine this grip. Now although it's not my main grip, I'm mainly a matched grip player, I used it as an additional tool in my playing. I liked it for jazz and brushes because I like the subtleties of having my hand underneath the stick as opposed to on top of the stick. Okay, let's break down the traditional grip. Put my sticks away for a second here. Take your left hand, put it out just like you're going to shake somebody's hand. Now grab your drumstick, and I want you to place the stick, the back part of the stick, in the web portion of your hand between your index finger and your thumb, like so. Okay, now we have to find our old friend, the balance point again. So you might have to search for it. I'm using a different stick. I'm using Dom Famuleto's pad stick, so I got to search for it. Nope. Close. Ah, there it is. So just like in match grip, make sure you find that balance point. So now that we've found the sweet spot of the drumstick, what I'd like you to do is take your ring finger, place it underneath the drumstick like this. So right in between the tip of your finger and your second knuckle. Somewhere right in the middle of the finger, just like that. See if you can actually lift the drumstick up at this point. Something like that. You do that? Perfect. Now, Let's take our middle finger and our index finger and gently rest it on top of the drumstick. Now notice that my hand is also not turned like this. I see a lot of players play like that. You have to avoid that because you really have no control. Keep it just like you're still shaking somebody's hand. At this point, I want you to practice this, relax, and always have fun. Now that we've learned how to hold the drumstick properly, let's demonstrate all the different hand angles that we can utilize around the drum set. Now the first grip I'd like to talk about is the German grip, also known as the Germanic grip. So the first step is to bring your arms down by your side, just like this, totally relaxed. Now don't sit like this, because this is not relaxed. Don't sit like this. I see a lot of students putting their arms down and relaxing like this. That's not a relaxed feel. Arms down by your side in a complete relaxed form. Now at this point, bring your arms up from your elbows and join your tips together to make a 90-degree angle, just like that. Notice, center of the drum, 90-degree angle, but also notice my palms are facing down. This is the German grip. Now the second grip that I'd like to talk about is the American grip. If you remember the German grip, we had our hands flat, palms down, 90-degree angle at the center of the drum. If I take one of my sticks, rest it on top of my hand, it should be level with the floor at this point. Now watch what happens if I go from the German grip to the American grip. My hand angle changes to a 45-degree angle to the floor. So now if I take both of my sticks, go from the German grip, 90-degree angle at the center of the drum, to the American grip, notice that my stick angle changed also to a 45-degree angle. This is now called the American grip. Now the third grip I want to demonstrate is called the French grip. Let's review the other two we've already learned. We've learned the German grip, which was palms down, 90-degree angle, center of the drum. The American grip, 45-degree angle, stick center of the drum, hand angle, 45 degrees to the floor. The French grip, watch this now. I'm bringing my palms in to face one another, thumbnails facing up, playing from the wrist at this point. This is called the French grip. Here's a great exercise for you to practice. Go from the French grip to the American grip to the German grip using a single stroke roll. Do not change the way you hold the stick. The only thing that's changing is your hand angle. I'll start with the French, I'll go to the American, I'll end with the German, come back to the American, come back to the French. This is a great warm-up. Practice this every day and you'll be amazed. Have fun. The free stroke can simply be defined as understanding the natural movement of the drumstick, allowing it to freely move as it wants to. Watch as I demonstrate. Begin by holding the stick in any of the three grips we discussed. I'm going to use the American grip in these examples. Now, with your stick pointing straight up, 90 degrees to the floor, I want you to strike the drum with full force, allowing natural rebound to allow the stick to come right back up to the top. Now, if you're not quite understanding where this is coming from, I want you to try this. I want you to try releasing your fulcrum point. Remember the fulcrum point? Index finger and thumb. At this point, as soon as you do that, strike the drum, release your fulcrum point, watch what happens in my hand. Notice where the stick ended up? In the web between the index finger and the thumb. What this is doing is it's allowing you to see where the stick wants to naturally move after you strike the drum. If the stick flies out of your hand, perfect. Once you gain this concept, re-secure your fulcrum point, start over. Natural rebound. In this section, I'd like to talk about my favorite topic of technique, finger control. Remember how we hold the stick? This is very important. If you don't remember, refer back to the chapter where I discuss how to hold the drumstick. Okay, now in finger control, I primarily use the French grip for this one. Now the reason being is because when I'm playing this with my hands, the stick, if I turn my hand to the side like this, can freely move without hitting myself in the hand. Now I see a lot of drummers doing that. Well, for one, I'm not getting very much motion at the end of my stick. As soon as I turn my hand to the French grip, I'm getting a lot more. So you want to turn up to the French grip, and there's no wrist. You can see my arm shaking, but I'm not using it. I'm just using the fingers here. So you're probably wondering, how the heck does he do this? Well, okay, so what I started developing when I saw my favorite drummers practicing and playing these things, I wanted to figure out how they did this. Now, just to give you a heads up, finger control practice slow is very difficult because this is designed for fast speeds. I had to go back later and relearn how to do this. That's difficult to do. So what I started doing to develop my fingers was I would do this in front of the TV. I'd sit on the couch, put my arm up on an armrest, put on my favorite TV show, and I would just start doing this. No wrist. Notice there's no wrist moving. It's just fingers. Fingers are balancing on the thumb. Don't do this. I see a lot of drummers doing this. Look what's happening to the stick and my fingers. It's a bunch of wasted energy. You want to get the tips of the fingers on the stick because that's where you're getting the most leverage at the ends of your fingers for the stick to move like this. See how much movement I've got on my drumstick? Here, I got nothing. It's just a waste of energy. Now this is difficult. I'm not going to lie to you. Take your time and be patient. I can't say that enough. Now what this is doing is you're actually strengthening your fingers because you're fighting against gravity. Gravity's pulling down on the back of the stick and you're pushing up, which is difficult. You might feel some pain and burn. If it's pain, put it away. If you're feeling a burn, that's good because you're strengthening those fingers. Now, when you go back to the drum or to the pad, gravity is your friend. He's now on your side. At first, you're going to see this. You're going to see the stick moving all over the place. This is called finger control. We have to learn how to control this crazy piece of wood in our hand with the fingers. Be patient, it'll come. Another thing you can do, if you're sitting in front of the TV months later and you're starting to get this happening, is practice one finger at a time. This may be challenging at first, but once again, nothing like a good challenge, right? Now what I was noticing when I was doing this is I was strengthening each finger equally, so I didn't really have a weaker finger. I find that my pinky is a little bit weaker than the other two. It's mainly because I didn't use him for years. I see a lot of drummers playing like that, which is not great. I was one of them, eventually got that on there. That pinky acts as a stabilizer on the drumstick. So keep him on there. Practice that, both hands, always do both hands, and you'll be amazed at what you can start to do with the fingers. Be patient, always have fun. Here are some examples you can try at home with finger control. I like to call this dribbling the stick. Let's take groups of 3s and 4s and let's just move them around the kit. 3 in each hand and then 4 in each hand. Something like this. Here are some examples of some faster hi-hat and ride cymbal playing. I tend to incorporate fingers when I'm playing faster patterns on the cymbals. In this section, I'd like to demonstrate something I call flurry fills, where I also incorporate finger control. Now, there's so many different fills that I like to play, I'm just going to demonstrate one of my personal favorites, which is 4 notes out of 6 16th note triplets. The first 4 notes. Sounds like this. Play that faster. The motions are the secret to great dynamic playing. They should be practiced to ensure that you have the stick at the correct height for the dynamic level you are trying to achieve. Let's jump into these motions. The first one I want to talk about is the tap stroke. It's also known as the low stroke. Now the tap stroke is designed for low volumes. So simply, and you can use any one of the three grips. I'm going to use the American grip. This is the grip that I mainly use. You start low and you finish low. I'm just playing from the wrist at this point. So obviously, I'm getting a soft volume with the tap stroke. You can practice your tap strokes in a single stroke roll fashion like this. You can play them both together. Make sure that if you're practicing a tap stroke with your hands together, do not play a flam because your hands aren't the same height. Keep them in unison. Here's a tap stroke using a single stroke roll. The next motion I want to talk about is the full stroke. Now the full stroke is used for loud volumes. So we're going to start high, 90 degrees to the floor, strike the drum, finish high. Once again, use any one of the grips, German, American, or French. It's completely up to you. Practice all three. Loud volume. This is not a full stroke. Hit the drum. Make sure that you're not just watching the drum. Try to watch where your stick is going to end up. Don't do this. Really keep an eye on where your stick begins and ends. Here's a single stroke roll using the full stroke. Okay, the next motion I want to talk about is the medium full stroke, also known as the half stroke. Now, with the medium full stroke, you're going to start at a 45-degree angle to the floor. So your stick looks like that. Strike the drum, end off at the same spot. So if you notice, I'm now getting a medium volume. Remember the full stroke was way up, much louder, halfway down, half stroke. Medium full stroke, same thing. Getting a medium volume. Here's a single stroke roll with the medium full stroke. This next motion is a pretty cool one. This is called the downstroke. Now the downstroke, you're going to start high, strike the drum, and finish low. Watch this. Now once I do that, I have to start from the top. The reason being is you cannot play two downstrokes with the same hand, one after the other. Now if you notice, I'm getting a loud sound preparing me for a soft sound. So we've already learned the tap strokes, which were a low sound. Let's go downstroke into a series of tap strokes. Start over. You hear that? Down tap, 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 tap. Notice I'm watching my stick heights. It's very important. So practice this for a while. Watch your stick heights. Keep them consistent. Remember to always have fun. The last motion I'd like to demonstrate is called the upstroke. This one was fun to practice. It was kind of like an illusion stroke because you start low, you tap the drum, and you finish high. Did you notice how I snuck that little note in there on the way up? It's almost like an illusion. It really didn't happen, but it did. So what this is doing, it's getting me a soft sound, preparing me for a loud sound. So I could go upstroke, maybe into a full stroke. I have to start this over now. Upstroke, full stroke. Upstroke, full stroke. Now what I could do is I could also play an upstroke into a downstroke to give me a continuous pattern. Upstroke, downstroke, upstroke, downstroke. Up, down, up, down, up, down. Notice the tap stroke to my left hand. When you're practicing these, you really have to watch your stick heights. I suggest putting a mirror in front of you to make sure you can see yourself. Have fun, stay patient. I'm going to take you through some exercises demonstrating the motions. I'd like you to play along with me on these. Let's do them slow, over-exaggerate them. If you have to, use a mirror. You'll be amazed at the results that are going to come sooner than later. For this next exercise, let's take 4-note pattern. We're going to accent the first note and the third note. We get this by going down, up, down, up. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Loud, soft, loud, soft, loud, soft, loud, soft. Left hand, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Both hands together, take it slow at first. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. In this example, I'd like to show you a 3-note pattern accenting the first note. Here's how we do this. Down, tap, up, down, tap, up, down, tap, up, down, tap, up. Left hand, down, tap, up, down, tap, up, down, tap, up, down, tap, up. Here's a cool little exercise you can do. Same thing with both hands. In this example, let's take 4 notes and accent the first note. Remember, accent means to play louder. It's going to be a downstroke, 2 tap strokes, and an upstroke. Down, tap, tap, up. Down, tap, tap, up. Down, tap, tap, up. Loud, soft, soft, soft. Loud, soft, soft, soft. Down, tap, tap, up. Left hand, down, tap, tap, up. tap, tap, up. Now to save time, do what I used to do. Practice both hands at the exact same time. Down, tap, tap, up. Throw a mirror in front of yourself to make sure your sticks are coming up to the same height. In this exercise, I want to demonstrate a 4-note pattern accenting the first 2 notes. Here's how we do this. Full, down, tap, up. Full, down, tap, up. Full, down, tap, up. Left hand, full, down, tap, up. Full, down, tap, up. This is a tricky one, so be patient with this one and have fun. Here, we're going to be playing a 2-handed exercise. In the right hand, I want you to play down, up, down, up. With the left hand, only tap strokes. Sounds something like this. You can also try this with the left hand. Left hand would play down, up. Now the right hand will be playing just tap strokes. Sounds like this. Here's a 2-handed pattern that's one of my personal favorites. Let me play for you, then I'll slow it down and explain what I'm doing. All it is down, up, up, down, down, up, up, down, down, up, up, down, down, up, up. This is an example of a 2-handed pattern using a triplet feel. Let me play for you first, then I'll slow it down and explain what I'm doing. Okay, so what's happening here is I'm going down, up, tap. Down, up, tap, down, up, tap, down, up, tap, down, up, tap, down, up, tap. In these next 4 examples, I'd like to take a straight-ahead 8th note beat, utilizing the motions on the hi-hat to change it up. Now this is the exact same beat, but watch how they all sound different. In this example, I'd like to demonstrate a basic 16th note rock beat using the motions down, tap, tap, up on my hi-hat. Something like this. Here's a two-handed 16th note beat pattern where I incorporate down, up in my right hand and just tap strokes in my left. Something like this. Here's an example using a triplet or 12/8 feel. I'm going to play down, tap, up on my hi-hat cymbal. Now here's another example in a triplet or 12/8 feel. This one's a little bit more tricky, so you want to take this one slow. We're going to go down, tap, tap, up. Down, tap, tap, up. Something like this. Here's an example of a basic funk groove. I'm just playing down, tap, up. Thinking 16th notes, only playing the first 3 16th notes, like this. Here's another example of a basic funk beat playing the first, the third, and the fourth note of the 16th note group. Down, tap, up. In this section, I'd like to demonstrate fills using the motions. I'll play a beat, let you hear how it sounds on the snare drum, play the same beat again, do the same fill but utilize it around the toms. Follow along in the sheet music provided. The Moeller method, also known as the Moeller technique. What is it? Who is Moeller? Who did he play for? Let me tell you as much as I can about a man who I've never met nor seen play. Do I have your attention yet? Great. Now, if I may quote Mr. Dom Famularo, he simply states that Sanford Augustus Moeller did not invent this stroke. He simply observed many of the top drummers of his time and noticed they were all using a whipping motion, which created a fluid motion and relaxed sound. The key thing that Moeller noticed is that power comes from motion, not muscular force. Sanford Moeller popularized this method amongst many of today's top drummers up until his death in 1960. Now, I've learned the Moeller method from master drummers such as Jim Chapin, who was Sanford Moeller's best student, Dom Famularo, and John Fisher. I use this technique in my playing all the time and continue to study and improve on it. I hope you will do the same. Are you ready for the secrets? The whip. Have you ever cracked a whip before? If not, you should. It's fun. Find a friend who lives on a ranch, grab a whip and start cracking. It's a great time. But seriously, the whip is the secret to the Moeller technique. Now, let me demonstrate by showing you what a whipping motion would look like in my hand. With the stick in my hand, it sounds something like this. Can you hear the stick whipping through the air? This is where the power is generated. Now, can you imagine when we hit a drum or a cymbal? This is going to generate a very powerful stroke. Now, the Moeller stroke is broken down into 3 distinct heights: the low molar, the half molar, and the full molar. Let's begin with the breakdown of the low molar stroke. Okay, let's start with the tip of the stick on your drum, raising your wrist slightly, of course, bringing the back of the stick with you, and whipping from this position. Notice that power? There's that whip. Right hand. Notice that power comes from motion, not muscular force. The grip is very important here. I still have the back of the stick in the pad of my hand. This is the shock absorber. This being such a powerful stroke, I don't want the stick to hit me in any joints or any bone of my hand. Let me just play some low molar strokes for you. Now I'd like to talk about the half molar. Let's begin by raising our arm level to the ground. Now at this time, I want you to generate the whip from this position. Raise the arm, whip down. Now if you're trying this, I bet you're not getting your fullest potential stroke. Let me explain why. I see this in a lot of students that I teach the half molar to. Let's start with not even using any sticks in our hands. I want you to raise your arm up, level to the ground, let it naturally fall. See how I'm hitting myself in the leg? It hurts, doesn't it? Don't hurt yourself for too long. It's just an example to show you how my arm wants to fall naturally. It's not this. This is where I see a lot of problems with students who do not practice the half molar properly. They raise the arm up, they bring it down. They raise it up, they bring it down. Raise it up, let it fall. So I'm just generally thinking down. That's all it is. And before I get a bruise on my leg, I'm going to grab my drumstick. Try this again. All I'm doing is I'm whipping from that last motion of letting the arm fall. That's where the power is coming from. Don't forget the other hand. Notice how the half molar is a lot louder than the low molar. Last but not least is the king of the power stroke, the full molar. Have you ever seen Stuart Copeland play from The Police? How about Kenny Aronoff? If not, you should check out these drummers as much as possible. Now the full molar is similar to the half molar in the sense that you're going to raise your arm up, but you're going to keep going higher over your head. At this point, if I drop my arm down, I'm generating a lot of power. Before I seriously bruise my leg, I'm going to put the stick in my hand and show you what we should be practicing. Raising my arm up, my stick is following. You see that? At this point, I'm going to generate the whip on the way down from that point. Do not tense up. Stay very relaxed. This is very important. Now this might seem kind of weird, especially for you drummers that aren't used to hitting hard, but practicing the full molar will give you that tool that you may need if you need to get a loud volume in your playing. If you accidentally drop the stick, that's okay. Keep practicing. It'll eventually come. For some other great resources on these topics and techniques, be sure to check out Jim Chapin's video, Speed, Power, Control, and Endurance. Also, Dom Famularo has a great book entitled It's Your Move, Motions and Emotions. Here's an exercise I'd like you to try at home, incorporating the 3 heights of the Moeller technique on the snare drum. We're going to take a basic rock beat. On the snare, beats 2 and 4, I want you to play a low molar. Then we're going to go into the half molar, and for even more volume, we'll then go into the full molar. Something like this. In this section, I'd like to talk about one of my personal favorite drum rudiments, the single paradiddle. Now this wasn't the case when I first started playing drums. I didn't understand why I had to go home and practice my paradiddles. When I started listening to great drummers who knew how to use this rudiment properly, I was intrigued by their ability to move it around the drum set, create some really cool and interesting patterns. Now I incorporate the Moeller technique, the motions, and rebound playing in the single paradiddle, and I view this rudiment as a single stroke arm motion. Allow me to demonstrate. Now here's how we view the paradiddle. For those of you who have never learned it, this is what it is. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Now if that still seems kind of confusing, try this method. Say the word paradiddle, paradiddle. The word diddle ends up being your double. Paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. So I would suggest practicing this first to get the pattern comfortable before we can move on to the next section. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Paradiddle, paradiddle. Now by incorporating the Moeller technique and the motions to this cool rudiment, this is what I get. Now what I've got, down, up, tap, tap. And then reverse. Down, up, tap, tap. Down, up, tap, tap, down, up, tap, tap, down, up, tap, tap. Now when I mentioned earlier that I view this rudiment as a single stroke arm movement, listen to the accents. So there's my single stroke. I'm going to sneak in those little motions in between those singles. Now the secret to making this work is the consistency of your downstroke. This will generate enough rebound until your next downstroke. You must be patient, practice in front of a mirror, stay relaxed. You'll be amazed at the results. Two of my favorite drummers who use this rudiment to its fullest potential are Steve Gadd and David Garibaldi. I would highly suggest listening to as many recordings of these drummers as you can, or better yet, see them live.